this week, last Monday, as a matter of fact, I was cooking at Crosslines. And what I was making was ham slices. And the way that I do that is I put the ham slices in a deep pan and I season them with garlic and onions and a little all seasoning, you know, that mixed up stuff, throw that in there, and a little pepper, and I cover it with water. Cover it with aluminum foil, and I put it in this convection oven. And I cook it at about 350 degrees for an hour. That's all it takes. I pulled that ham out, and with my hand, I pulled back the aluminum foil, and that hot steam came up, and it burned my hand. Now, you don't know how much you need your hands until you get a wound like this, right? Trying hard not to break the blister so it will heal and all that kind of stuff. I banged this finger about 50 times this week, even reaching in my pocket to get like my change or my pocket knife hurt. My whole life was disorganized by a little burn on my finger. It just wasn't right. Now, those of you who know me, you know I like order. When my routine gets upset, I get upset. Now, I thought I was being perfectly fine, but on the phone I was talking to someone and she said, "What's wrong?" She heard it in my voice. I said, "I banged my finger that I burned." And she said, "God bless you." Thank God, right? God bless you. I like my life to be peaceful. I like my life to be organized. And I like it to go according to my plan. Now, how often does that happen? Amen? You have a plan too, don't you? Everybody here has a plan. You know what you're going to do after worship. You're going to go someplace, you're going to be with someone, you're going to do something. I'm going downstairs to serve hot dogs and potato salad. I think, if Dave hasn't burned my hot dogs, because he's been tending them back there. I have a plan. Dave's cooking for me right now. But if he burns the hot dogs, we'll do something else, right? We'll lift up a prayer to God and we'll try to do something else. You think that our plans get messed up. Think of poor Israel this morning. Think of those last 2 tribes. The other 10 have been dispersed all over because of the Assyrians. The Babylonians came in. These last 2 tribes, they yank them out of Judea and they take them to Babylon and they send them into exile. And for 70 years, all they can do is long for home. Probably when they returned, there weren't but a handful of people that even remembered home after 70 years in Babylon. And God comes back and He says, your life has been turned upside down. It's like your life you experienced locusts and drought and all of these things that went wrong for you. Did you hear what He said He was going to do? They're going to get the rain, they're going to get the crops, everything is going to be the way it should be. Grapes for wine, grain in the silos. You're going to be blessed. You're going home because I put things right for you. I put things right for you. There are times in my life when I need things to be put right. Amen? And there are probably times in your life when you need things to be put right. Because life doesn't always go according to plan. There are people who think that the minute that you accept Jesus, it's candy street for the rest of your life. That everything's just going to go so smooth. Jesus didn't say that life would be all smooth. Jesus didn't say, follow me and walk down easy streets. What Jesus did say is, no matter where you are, I'll be with you. That if you fall off the path, I'm going to be off the path with you, getting you back on. I'll put things right. But certain conditions have to take place for that to happen. God says, when I put things right, if you want them to stay right, if you want to have faith the next time that things go wrong, then in the midst of your joy, in the midst of what I put right, there's certain things I expect. And Joel talked about those things that he expected. And one of the things he says is that you know that I'm in your midst. That we say over and over and over, God is here. God is here when things are good. God has restored me. God has renewed me. God has made me a new person. I don't know about you, but because I know Jesus Christ, I'm not the person I would have been had I never met Jesus. I'm now living a life now that I never would have lived had Jesus and God not been in my midst. Amen? And the same is for you. God gave us all a new life. So in this newness of life, when things get wrong, and we try to fix it ourselves, it's not going to be put right. God says that when things are wrong, when you're walking through the valleys, when things seem to be blowing up in your face, remember, I'm in your midst. No matter what happens in your life, I'm there. When you were in Babylon, I was there. On the road home, I was there. When you experienced the grapes for the wine and the full silos, when you experienced the rain and things were going well, I was in the midst of it. If we don't remember God when things are right, it's very doubtful we'll remember God when things go wrong. And so what Joel is telling the people is rehearse it all the time. God is in my midst. God is in my midst. God is with me. When I put my first step on the floor in the morning, God is with me. When I drive down I-35 to go to Crosslines, thank God, God is with me. When I'm cooking and I get a steam burn on my finger and I bang it 50 times during the week, God is with me. God never leaves me. And what Joel is telling the people of Israel is if you want to have things put right, you have to remember that God is in our midst when things are bad and need to be put right. And God says, I'll put things right. I'll make it right. I'll fill the silence. I'll bless you, and I'll bless you, and I'll bless you. You know what? My finger's healed. Amen? It's not there yet, but it's a blessing. The steam wound will heal. Maybe a little longer than for some of y'all, because I have MS, and that slows things down. But it's going to heal, because God continues to bless. God continues to put things right. And Joel says that when you recognize that God is in your midst, praise God and worship God. Praise God and worship God. Rehearse what God has done in your praise. It means you got to witness. Now we talked about that this morning. You have to witness what God has done for you. The writer of that song says, it is no secret what God can do, what God has done for others, He can do for you. Every time you praise God and you witness what God is doing in your life, you're giving someone else hope that God can put things right in their life as well. We praise God and we remember what God has done. Any time that you see God moving in your life, you should stop and praise God for that. When I get on K10 in the morning at 5 o'clock to drive in the darkness, before I ever get out of my driveway, I ask God for a safe journey. Every single morning. Every time I drive here, I pray that God will give me a safe journey. And when I get to Crosslines or when I get to Central, I thank God that I got here safe. You need to praise God for what God is doing in your life. Don't let it pass without saying thank you. Don't let it pass without praising God and worshiping God. You know, this sanctuary is not the only place where you can worship. You can worship God in your car. You can worship God in your bedroom. Wherever you are, you can worship God. You can offer up praise. You can offer up thanksgiving. You can remember the word that God has spoken and let it strengthen you. Remember, Joel says, that God is in your midst. And when you remember that God is in your midst and you see what God is doing, you give God thanks, you give God praise, and you worship God in that moment. Not just in the sanctuary, but wherever you are, stop and give God praise. Stop and give God worship. Michelle there got up the front stairs today. I praise God. It was hard, wasn't it?
It was.
But what a victory. She's here. She's in church today. Even little things we can praise God for. Michelle made it up the front stairs. Hey, I assured her that there's a ramp coming. And then we will praise God as we dedicate that ramp. Amen? We can give God thanks. We can give God praise. We don't have to just do it in the sanctuary. He says to do that. And he says when you do that, there's a blessing. And this is what puts it all right. Puts it right.
Yeah.
We remember that God is in our midst. We confess it daily. At every moment in the day, God is in our midst. When we recognize what God is doing, we praise God and we worship God. Right there. He says if you do that, you will always understand that God's grace is working in your life. It's all about grace, my friends. It's about God working even when we're not thinking about God. Even when we don't know that God is doing something. It's about that grace. Wholly relying on God's grace. I can't rely on myself. I break down. You know? And some of you that are getting a little older, you know what it's like to break down, huh? But thank God. Thank God who gives me another day. It's by God's grace I'm standing here. It's by God's grace you're here. It's by God's grace that we know one another, that we confess together that God is in our midst, and we can come together and praise and worship God. It's God's grace. It's God's undeserved favor that touches our lives, that puts things right, and makes us who we are. Amen?
Amen.
You have a plan for today. You have a plan. The best laid plans you've ever had. If you accomplish it, praise God. If you slide off a little from that plan and something happens, God is in your midst. Praise God is with you. Amen? Think about that grace and feel it as it fills us and reminds us that it is God who puts things right in our life. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.